Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the final day of the Culturally Competent Conversations for Equity and Belongingness Summit, or the C3EB Summit. This is going to be an amazing presentation by an amazing coach and entrepreneur and businessman. And before I introduce our expert speaker, couple of housekeeping notes. Make sure you comment either on our YouTube channel or Facebook, whether you're watching this live or catching this later. Make sure you comment if you have questions. We will be monitoring the questions and the comment sections even after the summit is done and even after the live stream is done. This way, no matter when you're watching it, if you have questions, I can get them to our speaker and get them answered for you. Also, this summit would not be possible, and future programming would not be possible without the generous support of our partners and sponsors. So a huge thank you to Essential IT, Defy the Status Quo Marketing, Zanzibar Enterprises, and the Nielsen Company. That being said, it is my absolute pleasure and honor to introduce to all of you through the C3EB Summit platform Ed Balke, who is the CEO at Ed Balke Deserve Level Coaching. Passionate about sustainability and personal growth, elite life and business coach and top coaching partner of Soulful Radical Results Coaching, Ed Balke spent decades developing his proven Deserve Level coaching technology that skyrockets the thousands of entrepreneurs, coaches, nonprofits, and executives he has coached to outrageous outcomes. Whether you call it self-fulfilling prophecy or expectancy effect, your internal view of yourself doesn't let you exceed your deserve level. As Ed says, we get in life what our unconscious beliefs we deserve. Over 20 years of intensive research and experimentation in behaviorism and brain science, Ed reverse engineered human deserve level to develop a coaching technology which effectively rewires people's unconscious minds, giving them the power to redesign their identities, unlocking their potential to reach unprecedented heights in life. Ed brings 3 decades of executive coaching, public speaking, and real-world operations experience with startups to major corporations, including Rockwell, Saatchi & Saatchi, and the NYSE. A single father homeschooling his 11-year-old daughter, Ed uses deserve level coaching to impact youth-focused nonprofits, including New York Youth at Risk, the LUV Institute, and Kids for Kids. His clients cite Ed's coaching combined with the power of the technology he has created as reasons for quickly achieving previously unimaginable goals. And today, Ed is here to talk to us about environmental integrity and our paths to the equity that the world deserves. So with that being said, it is my absolute honor to welcome Ed. Hi, Ed.
Hi, AJ. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity to talk about environmental equity and deserve level.
Thank you so much. So you know what, Ed, take it away and blow us all away.
All right, terrific. Well, AJ, I coach high achievers to produce outrageous results in their businesses and their personal lives by raising their deserve levels. A central theme in my coaching is that the primary driver of the results in all areas of your life is that you get what your unconscious mind believes you deserve. That's your deserve level. I help people reprogram their unconscious minds to achieve previously unachievable things, like going from being really stuck to making a ton of money fast. My mission is to raise the deserve level of the planet, which is impossible without environmental equity. That's why it's my passion. Now, my partner in sustainability coaching is the person with the highest level of integrity and the deepest love for humanity of anyone I've ever met. She's also my coach and mentor, Carolina Aramburu. Together, we coach people and organizations in eco-responsibility. And the results that we've produced with our clients include taking their companies from being polluters to carbon negative in as little as 3 months. Now, even though the summit is about inclusion and topics like gender and racial equity, and I'm a man's man, I'm also a single dad mom who braids his 11-year-old daughter's hair. And as you mentioned, I homeschool her too. And I didn't start out as an environmental activist or a vegan for that matter. When I met Carolina, I was an executive coach who also worked with charities involving at-risk kids. It was while we were working on my spiritual integrity that it hit me. How can I pretend to have integrity if the way I live my life is destroying the ecosystem of the planet and the future for the kids that I say I love? That aha moment jolted me into a new level of awareness and taking on for me and everyone who will listen, a new level of personal responsibility for sustainability and environmental equity. And I want to make sure that I give the appropriate credit. Carolina and I designed this talk together. She'll be speaking on gender equity this afternoon at 4:45 Eastern. She is truly extraordinary, so be sure to log on for her talk. Now, you might be hearing this talk and listen to this and see which of these things you fit into. So I want you to imagine, that this isn't some goody-goody thing about the environment that you can half listen to so you can feel good about yourself while checking your email or playing a game on your phone. You could, or you could listen like you'll learn something that will help you save the life of one of your kids or someone you're in love with, because it will. If you really listen and get what I'm about to say, you'll discover something that will help save the lives of the people you love. So, how should we look at environmental equity? Let's think of the world as being divided into 3 groups. And I want you to listen to see which one you fit into. The first group is the environmental activists. They're really concerned, really doing their best, trying to help, probably less than 10% of the population. The second group, and the super gigantic majority, 60, 70, 80%, have their heads buried in the sand. They're numb. They just don't want to know. They're in denial, wanting to stay in their comfort zone. Any problem seems very far off, and if there is a problem, the government will do something about it. It doesn't have anything to do with me. This is by far the most dangerous group. Then there are the active deniers. They're invested in disproving that there is such a thing as climate change. Some very smart people claiming it's all a hoax. 10, 20%. Dangerous, but not the real problem. I'm not necessarily talking to group 3, but if you happen to identify as that, please do listen, because you may discover something that you had no idea about. This is probably going to expose a blind spot that we all have that you can apply to many areas of life, not just the environment. In this conversation, I'm not going to waste time describing how bad it is, and it's really bad. I highly, highly, highly recommend that you read the book Uninhabitable Earth by David Wallace Wells. I'm actually begging you to read this book to educate yourself. I'm not going to try to convince you that the planet is dying, and it's true. Our planet is literally dying, but I'm not going to waste the very limited time of this talk on that. Suffice it to say that if we keep going the way we are, our children won't have an inhabitable Earth. It's not limited to sea level rise, so we could all escape by moving a few miles inland. Both the ecosystems and the social systems of the world are experiencing cascading failures, including extreme weather events, millions more acres consumed by wildfires, wars, crop failures, crime waves, refugee crises, mass extinctions, and the list goes on. This month alone, we've had a derecho, the equivalent of an inland hurricane, which destroyed thousands of homes, miles, acres of crops. And then during a record-breaking heat wave in California, including the hottest temperature ever recorded on Earth, 11,000 dry lightning strikes sparked hundreds of wildfires. a tsunami of wildfires across California, Colorado, Oregon, Washington, and Wyoming. More fire in the Brazilian Amazon than the disaster of last year. We're on a trajectory for a record number of named tropical storms in the Atlantic, including 2 hurricanes hitting Texas and Louisiana within 48 hours. The Greenland ice shelf has melted past the point of no return, and a massive fish kill in Biscayne Bay. This all happened within the last 30 days. But don't worry, keep telling yourself we haven't reached the tipping point yet. We're all contributing to this, even those of us doing everything we can think of to help the environment, because there aren't enough of us. So we're just doing what we can to take care of our integrity, and it's not making that much of a difference. Oh, by the way, we don't need to save the planet. The planet will be fine. It's humanity that's suffering and will be pushed to the brink of extinction. Suffering as a result of climate disaster is our probable, almost certain future. In fact, it's already here. But this talk isn't actually about that. Please read this book so that you can get what's really happening. And no, I don't get anything from the sales. No matter who you are, listen to this. I'm out to say to all the deniers, pay attention, because you're right. If you're a climate denier, you're right. The environment going down the toilet isn't the biggest problem. The problem isn't climate change. It's really not. It's not the biggest challenge of our lifetime. Now, those of you who are environmentalists, climate evangelists, you might be having a heart attack hearing this. Oh my God, what's he saying? Just keep tuning in, because you're going to discover a tool in this conversation that you didn't have before. The real problem isn't carbon or plastic pollution or the destruction of the Amazon or the world's oceans. I'm going to talk to you about the real problem in a simple, practical way to fix it. If you learn something today, if you get something useful in this conversation, you have my permission. And in fact, I request that you spread this talk. You're welcome to share this talk with anybody and everybody. And every time you do, all I ask is that you send people to check me out. Send people to check out my partner, Carolina Aramburu, and our network of coaches, Soulful Radical Results Coaching. We can get you to make sure that you have your integrity in an issue that is going to become, no kidding, history. Now, in the time we have, I'm going to introduce you to some powerful tools. And I recommend that you get a notebook, that you sit on the edge of your seat, and that you write down some super important points. Don't let yourself be numb to this. Yes, I'm talking to you, sitting in that chair, about to text your friend. Get every drop of value out of what I'm about to share with you. At the end of this talk, I'm going to give you a way to access some additional resources that you can use to expose more blind spots and raise your deserve level in every area of your life. Who doesn't want that? Life expectancy keeps going up, and as long as technology keeps increasing, and if we don't destroy the planet first, you might well live to be over 100 years old. And if you pay attention, you're going to get tools that you can use, not just to help change the course of the climate conversation, but in every area of your life. The only request is that every single time you use it, you give credit. That's the only request. We're not going to ask you to make a donation, plant trees, or anything. And trees are awesome. If you want to plant some trees, by all means, go ahead. So here's the real problem. It's not the warming of the planet or the plastic choking the oceans. It's environmental integrity, not even environmental equity. The real issue is environmental integrity. And because none of us has environmental integrity, we create environmental inequity and injustice. So the poorest people on the planet suffer with the biggest catastrophes. Children and adults around the world are suffering, getting sick, dying, not because of climate change, but because of our lack of environmental integrity. Neither you nor I have environmental integrity. Wait, what? How can you be saying I have no integrity? I'm here listening to this, aren't I? Don't I get any credit for that? I might not be using integrity the way you're used to. I'm talking about integrity like a ship's hull has integrity if it keeps the water out. Every time you or I do something that isn't good for the environment, say driving a gas-powered car to the grocery store, we're drilling a small hole in the hull of our ship. The holes aren't so tiny that we don't even notice it, but we just keep drilling. We don't notice that the ship is sinking until it's too late. You'll notice when the captain says there aren't enough lifeboats. Now we have to decide who to let die. Oopsie. The source of the suffering is not the lack of environmental equity. Environmental equity would be a wonderful utopic goal. And we have the opposite of that on the planet right now. But the source is the lack of environmental integrity of every single person on the planet. That's causing the suffering. Now I'm going to throw on the brakes. Where are you at? Have you tuned out? Here's where you can change your life, your income, your health, your relationships, any area of your life, if you decide that your integrity matters. The good news is we can fix this. You can fix this. Every single human living in their humble home. We don't need the government to fix it. We can fix it ourselves. And I'm sure there are a lot of parents watching this. Imagine that we're the parents, the mother and father of 8 billion children that all live in one house, and they're going to live in that house for the rest of their lives. We have 8 billion bedrooms for 8 billion children. The problem is that we love our children. We want them to thrive, have a great life. But there's a whole group of our children destroying their rooms. There's a bunch of the children, maybe 10, 20%, that live in penthouse-like bedrooms at the top. Awesome for them. A lot more of them live in more medium or average rooms. You can see the lack of environmental equity right there already, but no problem. The remainder live in modest or poor rooms. Those living in the penthouse rooms are absolutely destroying them. They're living it up, partying, all of it. At the same time, they're destroying their own rooms, flooding the apartments, throwing trash out in the hallway. The flooding and the trash flows down to the floors below and is destroying the bedrooms of several billion of the other children. They're throwing trash in the other bedrooms, contaminating the other bedrooms. You get the idea. And because the other bedrooms are more modest or poor, a lot of those other children die. The top 20, 30, 40% of your children are destroying the rooms of the other 60% and destroying their own lives, destroying their own health. And that's the actual world we're living in. It has nothing to do with saving the planet. The planet doesn't need saving. The environmental movement has this wrong because it's not about saving the planet. It's simply about putting back environmental integrity. Now, be honest. Are you listening to this conversation and thinking, what does this have to do with me? Well, you're a human being. You live in your little room. That's your environment. If you flood it, attract all kinds of pests, all kinds of contamination. If your air conditioner and your heater are growing mold and fungus, if your air quality stinks and you're getting sick, obviously you'd have a problem with that. You wouldn't live in those kind of conditions because you care about you living in a healthy place where you can thrive. So you're having a certain amount of environmental integrity. So your home works for you. You're being environmentally responsible for that little environment called my room. So we're living, all of us are living in a giant house called planet Earth. And we're not making sure that planet Earth is not getting destroyed. We're actually destroying it. And those of us doing the destroying aren't noticing it because we're on the top floors and we're destroying it more for the children below us. It's kind of like when we flood our own room, it flows into the apartments below, and they're having to deal with mold and other destruction. I recently experienced this firsthand. My 11-year-old daughter fell asleep in the shower and flooded our apartment. Not much damage to us compared to what happened to the floor below us and the one below that. They had to rip out ceilings, walls, floors, do mold remediation. It was a huge mess. Now think about that for a minute. All that destruction happened because she was asleep. Where are you asleep? So if you're on those upper floors, you're destroying your own place too, but you're kind of dry, so you don't really notice the bad conditions as much. It's all about environmental integrity. It's literally about not destroying the place where you live and not destroying the places where everybody lives. So what do we do now? What's our strategy? One of the ways that I help people raise their deserve levels is to train them to expose a particular kind of blind spot called limiting decisions. Those things you've made up about yourself or the world outside of you that stop you from achieving great results. For example, there's plenty of time to deal with this later, or I can't give up pizza, or why bother? I can't make a difference with environmental equity. It's up to the government or the UN to take care of this. The thing about limiting decisions is they're actually lies pretending to be true. It's really super simple. It's like if you knew that if you used your jacuzzi, but it had a leak, and every time you took a bath in it, it flooded the apartment below you, you'd stop using your jacuzzi until it was fixed and take a shower instead. If you like to smoke and you knew that your air ducts were connected to the apartments next to yours where the people had asthma, and every time you smoked, they had an asthma attack and some of them died, you wouldn't smoke in the apartment. If because you happen to love dairy, you have to have dairy in your meals, but you know that there are children starving in Africa because we have to feed millions of tons of grain to the cows that are producing the dairy. Oh, and by the way, you're drinking and eating blood and pus every time you have dairy, so it's not even healthy for you. Yeah, you heard me right. Because of the continuous pregnancies and excessive milking, many dairy cows suffer from mastitis. As well as being painful for the cows, this means there is blood and pus in their milk. In the US, the FDA allows 750 million pus cells in every liter of milk. And since all the milk is mixed together in big tanks, you can't even convince yourself that the carton in your fridge or the cheese on your pizza doesn't have blood and pus in it. If you knew all of that, you would actually switch and say, I don't need to have cow milk. If you knew you could save thousands of children's lives, I can actually have soy milk or coconut milk or oat milk, ice cream made from coconut milk, which is super delicious, by the way, vegan cheese. We have all the options in the world now. What I'm giving you is the idea of how super simple it is for all of us to restore our environmental integrity. And if we absolutely, all of us did it, there would be no problem with the environment going down the toilet because we'd all be demanding solutions we don't even know of yet. If nobody in any place was willing to fill up the tank of their car with gasoline, they wouldn't sell gasoline anymore. Most people don't understand the economy. They think that because there's an offer, there's a demand. It's not true. It's actually the opposite. It's because there's a demand that companies offer things. So if people stopped buying the products and services that do damage to the environment and that don't create a environmental equity, but only bought things that were responsible for the environment, healthy for the environment, the offers would be perfectly correlated to that. If we all used responsible consumerism, our environmental integrity would be restored, and we'd stop the damage to the environment and have real environmental equity. Take toilet paper. Are you actually going to cut down trees, taking the oxygen out of your kids' lungs to wipe your behind? Talk about the environment going down the toilet. How big a sacrifice would it be for you to switch to bamboo toilet paper, napkins, and paper towels? Why bamboo? Bamboo can grow to full size in 3 to 4 months, sucking carbon out of the air the whole time, compared to an average tree that takes 30 years to grow. It's all about responsible consumerism. If every person paying an electric bill demanded that their power came from solar, wind, or another sustainable resource, the power companies would stop burning fossil fuels. If every person only ate the foods that were still sustainable and delicious, if every builder only built using green materials and practices, we would be totally fine. If you not only gave up dairy, but cut the amount of beef, chicken, or other animals you ate in half, so that you only caused half as many kids to die, you'd be making an enormous impact. It's all about the integrity with which we live in our home environment. It's about how we spend every penny. You and I need to take a minute and look in the mirror. Are we spending on things that are destroying the planet and killing people around the world? Or do we have environmental integrity? It's only one or the other. There is no third choice. Would you buy and feed poison to your kids? We need to make the choices of what we buy like the lives of our children depend on it. And of course they do. Remember what I said in the beginning about the super majority of people who don't think it's their job to do anything about this? What happens if you, in the silent majority, do nothing? Now, get that notebook out and write down this key point. As Carolina taught me years ago, any great idea, amazing discovery, brilliant insight is absolutely worthless without action. What will you do with what you see from this conversation? If as a species we raise our deserve level, we would restore our environmental integrity globally, and we would have real environmental equity. Then and only then would we not need to be concerned about an uninhabitable Earth for our kids. As I said earlier, please share this talk. Make sure to send people to check me out at edbalke.com, to check out Carolina at carolinaaramburo.com, in our network of over 300 coaches at Soulful Radical Results Coaching. Now, in this talk, there hasn't been time to give you more than a tiny taste of the huge amount of information I use to coach people in raising their deserve levels and restoring environmental integrity. If you send me a quick email, as my gift to you, I'll send back a terrific list of the very specific things you can do to raise your deserve level and restore your environmental integrity. So send me an email and I'll send you this with all of the different ideas and resources. Now, I'm not going to ask you to subscribe to anything or try to sell you anything. It's my gift to you and also to my kids in the form of a world with environmental integrity. I just gave you way too many websites and emails, didn't I? Probably the easiest thing to do is to go to envirointegrity.com, which will give you all the info I've been speaking about. So it's Enviro Integrity, E-N-V-I-R-O integrity.com, which will give you everything you need to know to connect with me, Carolina, and get your environmental integrity resource list. You can also schedule a free one-on-one deserve level strategy session with me there. So that's got my email and the website. Now, one more coaching tip for you. Delaying taking action more than a few seconds reduces the chances of you ever taking it by a huge amount. And without action, nothing changes. So start that email or go to Enviro Integrity right as my smiling face leaves your screen. And don't forget to catch Carolina's talk coming up at 4:45 Eastern. I so thank you for restoring your environmental integrity. I'm not going to sell you on let's save the world together like this is some kind of telethon. I'm asking you to help save my kids, and I'll help you save your family. We all deserve that. Thank you.
Wow, that was so powerful and so overdue on the timeliness of it. So thank you so much, Ed. And before we get into the questions, I do want to take a moment to really thank Carolina Aramburu for all the coaches that have come through Soulful Radical Coaching and through Carolina for this summit, including you, including Carolina later today at 4:45 p.m. That is going to be an amazing talk. We had Tia Neo-Emus on Wednesday, our gender guide, and then we had Zanzibar Vermilio yesterday talking about crafting exquisite purpose, and now you with environmental integrity. So thank you to Carolina Aramburu for so much help. This was so potent. Yes, absolutely. And we have questions coming in now. Our first question is, isn't high deserve level what got us to destroy the environment?
I like that. That's, it's really interesting because a lot of people confuse deserving and entitlement. They're two completely different things. So entitlement means that you expect to be given something for nothing. You don't have to work for it. You don't have to take care of it. And you should just receive no matter what. That is not what I mean when I talk about deserving or deserve level at all. Deserve level is something that you have to work for. It's something that you have to raise your awareness in order to achieve. You have to put in the effort and have integrity to have a high deserve level. So otherwise, it's chaos. But when you do the work to honor yourself by elevating your own integrity, that has a profound impact on your unconscious mind, and you start to think differently about who you are. And those unconscious thoughts transform your behavior, which means that your results transform in the process. So absolutely, it's not about deserve level that we've taken advantage of and pillaged the earth. What we need to do is raise our deserve level to restore it to a healthy and natural state.
Absolutely. And I actually have a question for you. As I was listening to your talk, I love that you said that, we don't have to wait for the government to save us, that it is up to each and every one of us to elevate our deserve levels, to realize, that the difference between deserve level and entitlement, as you just said. My question is, how, while we do have the agency to make these kind of changes, at the end of the day, especially when we go to vote or kind of, as informed citizenry, participate in these decision makings, a lot of these policies that were, and proposals that are thrown at us on our ballots, they're so complicated. How do we make sense of, how do we align that with our deserve levels to make the best decisions we can, individually first, but then collectively as a group?
Super question. Thank you, AJ. That's cool. So, so when I talk about something along the lines of responsible consumerism, that's saying that each of us as an individual has power. We can make our own choices. We can be responsible for our own behavior. And that does include how we spend every penny of our money. We're either supporting things that are destroying the environment or supporting things that promote health for the environment and environmental equity. The same is true with our vote. So even though I say it's not up to the government, what I mean is don't sit back. Don't expect the government to save this. Really, you are the government. If you raise your deserve level high enough, you're going to believe that your vote matters and that you can change the people that are in government to the ones that are taking responsibility and actually have integrity. So we've got to change government to be an institution or set of institutions that has a high level of integrity, and it's our deserve level that determines it. Every time we sit back and pretend like it's not our responsibility, we decrease the level of effectiveness of the government in making a difference for the things that we care about, like the future for our kids. So absolutely, 1,000,000%, we need to take responsibility. And to your point about the confusion about different policies and things, take responsibility, do the research, read, invest in yourself. Read the book that I mentioned. Again, this book, The Uninhabitable Earth by David Wallace Wells. It goes into a great amount of detail about how to impact the political institutions that we face. I've got maybe half a dozen more books listed in the environmental integrity resource list that you can get from that website. And they do focus a lot on how you have the impact that you want to have and have it spread out outside of your circle. But step number one, take responsibility.
Awesome. We have another question. I'm just going to read the whole thing. It says, thank you. My business partner and I would like to know if you can quickly share in more detail everything we can do to heal the environment, more than just being vegan or recycling, etc., to get closer to carbon neutral or negative.
Okay, so it's a big topic, and I can get started with it. But again, probably going to that website and getting the resource list, or sending me an email with the questions, I can follow up directly in more detail. I'll be more than happy to do that. Now, the start, and the reason that I emphasized our diet as much as I did and the impact of eating animal products is that one thing alone. If we stopped eating animal products, if you as one person stopped eating animal products, your carbon footprint will drop by more than half. So it's the biggest factor for all of us. It's more important than the car you drive or how many airplane trips you take. It's more important than all of those things. But if you really look at it, the big factors are diet, transportation, and then how you go about living your life on a daily basis in terms of the products that you buy, because everything that you spend money on has a carbon footprint. So the sort of meta context is learn about your personal carbon footprint and learn about the carbon footprint of everything you buy. And by becoming aware, I know that sounds like work, but guess what? It's up to us to change the future. If we aren't willing to do that work, the consequences are incredible. Like I mentioned earlier, just look at what's happened in the last 30 days. That's not a list of what's happened over the last 10 years. That's in the month of August. So the most important thing is the biggest thing that you can do to impact the environment in a positive way is to take responsibility and do the work yourself to understand what each of the things that you're doing does to impact the environment in a positive or a negative way.
Absolutely. There is one more question. Do you feel recycling helps? And why doesn't the US start handling our own recycling waste ourselves? Is it too costly, or is there no return on investment?
Okay, so again, I talk about this in that resource list, but recycling does make an impact. just if you think about it logically, everything that you put into a landfill sits there and decays and releases carbon. So yes, it uses land, but probably the greater impact is the carbon that it releases as it decays. So it does make a difference. Why the US doesn't deal with our own recycling more than we already do? Lack of responsibility. And the 60, 70% or so of people who just don't want to hear about it, who don't want to take responsibility and think it through and understand the impact that they're having. Now, if you recycle, terrific. And I don't want you to think that recycling is the panacea. If switching to a plant-based diet is going to reduce your carbon footprint by more than 50%, recycling is going to have a much smaller impact. Important, but much smaller. Okay, so it's take the whole thing in context. So your diet is number one, probably your transportation is number two. And then there's a whole collection of things that fill out like the bottom 20% of the impact that you have.
Okay, great. I'm not sure if there's going to be more questions coming up, but we do have a few minutes. So while we wait for that, I just want to read you some of the comments we've gotten on this, including, you know, thank you for the honest answer in response to the last question. But some of the other comments have been great content, so valuable. We don't know enough about this topic or the effects of our actions. Great information and perspective and actionable. Thank you, Ed. Potent talk. Amazing, Ed. Wish you could wave a magic wand and raise the deserve level of the planet. What a world we would have. And, you know, and the last comment we're getting is thank you for clarifying. Sounds like there is a lot of work to do. So
I appreciate that. I love all of those comments. Of course, you know, I am extraordinarily passionate on this topic because, you know, and I talk about Carolina a lot, and, you know, people will get to see her later today. But one of the things that had the most profound impact on my life of anything that I've ever done in decades of coaching and being committed to personal growth and development, discovery, elevating my level of spirituality, all of those things. The thing that had the most profound impact was starting to work with Carolina. And one of the things that she taught me was that any person can have a world-changing impact if they let go of the idea that they're small. We are limitless. You, whoever you are, if you think that there's a limit to what you can accomplish in life, if there's a limit to the impact that you can have, it's BS. It's made up. And that's the kind of work that I do in my coaching practice, because it's not magic. It isn't a magic wand. But what I will tell you is when you find the unconscious blockages holding your deserve level here when it should be here, everything changes, including your impact and your ability to make a difference with the environment and environmental equity. So I really do appreciate those comments, because that's what I care about the most. You know, it's a future for my kids and, you know, all the kids in the world. I love kids.
Absolutely. And it's not just your passion, right? You've taken the responsibility as you teach to invest your time and resources into learning about this enough to become so well versed that you can talk about this and teach about this articulately and help others with it. So I think, you know, you demonstrate through your actions what is possible when you take responsibility for whether it's your passion or a cause or a need, whatever it may be. When you take responsibility, this is what is possible. So you absolutely demonstrate that with who you are, you know, just who you are, period. So thank you so much. We have one last question before we wrap up. How long do you think we have before there is no return?
Well, isn't that the greatest question? So people talk a lot about tipping points. And, you might think of that as the point of no return. In The Uninhabitable Earth, he talks about how it isn't like there is going to be one day, like there was this kind of wacky movie about the end of the world due to climate change. I think it was called The Day After Tomorrow. And he uses that as an example in the book because it makes it seem like things are going to kind of muddle along for a while, and then one day all hell breaks loose, everybody dies. That's not a very likely scenario. That's probably the most unlikely scenario. What's really happening is that we hit individual tipping points and things go really bad for a certain part of the environment that create suffering. I gave you a list of things that was by no means a complete list, but things that happened in the last 30 days, 28 days, that seemed like it was a list of catastrophes over the 20th century, something like that. 28 days. So we have hit those tipping points. The estimates are that by the time my daughter is a young adult, there will be hardly any coral reefs for her to visit if she decides to take up scuba diving. That is something that I grew up with. At her age, I went diving for the first time, and it was glorious to be able to see all of that life underwater. What we have now is plastic pollution at the deepest point of the ocean, in the deepest trench, miles below the surface of the ocean, there's plastic. It's in every fish. The coral reefs that I dove on when I was her age are almost all gone. More than half of the Great Barrier Reef in Australia, which was one of the most amazing of God's creations I had ever seen, more than half of it's gone now. So when are we going to hit the point of no return? We have already hit the point of no return for so many things. Millions of species of animals and insects and birds gone. So how much more of that do we want to take? I think that's really the question. The suffering keeps going up. People are worried about influxes of immigrants coming from South America. Why are they coming up here? Because they can't grow crops anymore in the land that used to sustain them. So the point of no return, I don't know. It's going to get worse, and then it's going to get worse, and then it's going to get a lot worse. And it already is way worse than it should be. So I'm sorry, I can't give you a particular date to say that's it. No human life will be sustainable after, June 29th, 2034. It's not like that. It's going to get worse and worse and worse and worse until we wake up and start taking responsibility, each of us individually. And then we have the opportunity to make a collective change in the governments around the world so that we have a chance.
Absolutely. And I think that is the final overarching message of, of your talk and everything that you do, right? That yes, there's been so many tipping points, and yes, things are worse than they should be, but it is still not too late for us to wake up and take responsibility and invest in what we need to invest in ourselves so that we can make the changes necessary to stop these tipping points from getting worse and worse and worse. So absolutely. Thank you so much. And in the interest of time and, to be respectful of your time, if anybody has any questions, please continue to put them after this session. I will make sure that Ed gets to them, or you can go to www.envirointegrity.com, which I have posted in the comments for you. So if you click on it, it will take you to this resource list and allow you to connect with Ed and, of course, Carolina. So as we wrap up, for all of our listeners who have tuned in now or later, thank you so much. because Ed has allowed, has already said that this video can be shared freely, what I will say is that this video will not be gated ever. So please share this freely. It is a very important message that we need to get out to everybody, as many people as we can. So please share freely, and please comment and connect with Ed Balke and Carolina Aramburu to raise your deserve levels, to break past your limits, and to really, really start unlocking the potential of your impact. Please do that for all of our sakes, really. And again, as a final note, thank you to our sponsors and partners: Essential IT, Defy the Status Quo Marketing, Zanzibar Enterprises, and the Nielsen Company. A huge thank you to Carolina Aramburu, who we are going to see in a keynote at 4:45 p.m. today. And I promise you that this is going to be mind-blowing, because what Ed said is absolutely right. My very first conversation I ever had with Carolina, it's like Carolina has this amazing gift to see your potential in you when you can't even see it yourself. And she just does, I don't know, some stuff, some magic. And all of a sudden it's like your mind just blows wide open. And that's like based on one conversation I've had with her. So it's absolutely true. So thank you so much to Carolina for helping me shine the spotlight on you, Ed, in this presentation. And of course, last but not least, thank you so much for your contribution, for your, for providing us with some amazing insights, and based on your experience and your research and your passion and all of that. Again, you truly walk this walk, and you are an amazing role model for this. So thank you.
AJ, thank you so much. Thank you for creating this summit. What a wonderful gift to humanity that you are, and what you've created is all the terrific speakers. I've been listening to the talks. It's just truly amazing and wonderful. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And for all of our listeners, we have another session coming up at 1 o'clock. So we will see you in that session. We hope you join us, and we'll continue on with the last day of the inaugural C3EB Summit. Thank you all for making this such a huge success. And again, thank you, Ed.
Thank you. Bye for now.